IPA predicted that there was going to be consumer rebellion against industry norms.
Various rebellions against authorities.
Rebellion against perfection. And also constraints and a little bit of, sort of people just wanting not to feel like they were trapped and having to abide by the rules all the time, really.
People are starting to rebel against authority a bit more because they're hearing quite a lot of different voices online. It's not like it was 20, 30 years ago when you were hearing things through the traditional press of newspapers, magazines, TV and radio. There's so many other platforms now. A lot of those voices are rightly or wrongly very influential, and within those little communities you're starting to see actually you're feeling a bit more validated about having an opinion that challenges someone because there's other people then agreeing with you. I think consumers are really starting to rebel against authorities by making their own decisions based on what their values are, what they align to. So it could be choosing a slower fashion brand over a fast fashion brand. It's that move to sustainability, because actually to say, oh, I got it off Vinted, I got it off Depop, I got it off eBay, feels better. And I think people are starting to think about how they feel making the purchases that they do, and that's almost an act of rebellion in itself. Gen Z really make a lot of their decisions based on morals and values as opposed to what's convenient to them. Brands need to be bringing the receipts. They can't be showing up and saying, oh, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I promised to do. It just doesn't wash. Consumers don't care. If you've got their attention for those split seconds, particularly across social, it needs to be saying, this is what I have done, this is the evidence, this is the impact that it's made. Otherwise people will just brush it off and it doesn't really affect your brand perception.
So the IPA predicted a rebellion against perfection, which meant an increasing number of people kind of being unapologetically themselves, embracing individual style and kind of in defiance of like the beauty standard and stuff like that. We're seeing it a lot with kind of body positivity. Nowadays, it's very much being about embracing whatever size, whatever shape you are. We see it with Dove. I know August do a lot of it, who are a period brand. Acne Side and Benzac, they're fantastic with it as well. Normalising things like acne and teen acne, encouraging people to, just take care of their skin properly. Jet 2 have been great with their Vibes campaign. They work with a lot of big British influencers. They encourage them to, embrace their own styles and be funny with it. And it worked fantastically on TikTok. I think a lot of younger generations are cancelling brands that are trying to put consumers in a box and push unhealthy standards on them. It isn't even a generational thing. I think it does span all of them. I think everyone during COVID had that moment of going, ooh, we don't like this. And I think that caused a lot of people to readdress and go, you know what, I'm living life on my terms. I'm gonna, stop wearing makeup, and I'm gonna stop caring so much about what people think about me.
So 2022's trend was, obviously people gaining power back for themselves. And I think now that people are feeling more empowered and that they know their own minds, they then want to rebel against what's happening in the larger trends of the world. So I should imagine that's how those two things are sort of coming into play. And then constraint as well, just, again, there's something about, the Brexit, the war and everything. Everybody's just sort of felt quite dragged down, and there's been quite a lot of doom scrolling in the news. And I feel like that's certainly something that's a key theme. So, let's not be constrained. Let's get a bit of joy back in our lives, really. I think brands in particular have been a bit reluctant to come across as frivolous or joyful because of the seriousness of the world. But this is sort of, it's humour, but also getting a really good point around the product across. And I think that's a really key thing for brands. Yes, you've got to tell people about the functional benefits of a brand, but actually, if you just focus on that, it's quite boring and dull. So it's like, the best thing to do, here's my product, but also make me laugh, make me smile, uplift my day a little bit. And those are the things that are really making people kind of connect with brands.
They predicted that people were going to be more aware of the data that they were sharing and less comfortable working with brands and advertisers that were misusing data. There is a section of the population which are now very aware of the data that they're sharing, and then there's still a huge audience of people who are unaware or burying their heads in the sand. We're seeing more and more value exchanges and interactive kind of components on websites which are value exchanges for data, and so brands are being more clever around how they collect that data, and subsequently are improving the quality of the data that they're working with. We're seeing kind of growths in competitions, any way of capturing some PII, be that an email address or a phone number, whereby the user is kind of aware of their choice and is doing it freely. InkyList have a great product on their site so that you can go through and see what skincare products would be best suited for you, and then obviously at the end of that there's a value exchange for an email address, and then you have all of that information. It comes down to finding the right approach to using data for each brand, depending upon that brand's goals. The clever brands who are kind of addressing this head on are taking a more ethical approach to the collection of data. We're constantly exposed to all of the stories around the misuse of data. The legislation that's coming out in the US over the next few years, creating those value propositions early to capture data will be the advantage when those legislations really start to crunch. The sooner brands start to take a lead on that, the more well prepared they'll be in the future.
It should be a joyous time to be in advertising and in the world of brands at the moment, because there's a lot to be gained. I think what we'll see now coming through is the marrying of two worlds of this hedonism that, we've talked about, the rebellion against constraint, but also with the purpose, not joy at all odds, it's joy that also does good. And I'd really like to sort of see some brands picking up on that and taking that forwards.
As long as platforms like TikTok and Be Real keep, ramping up there, which they're expected to, I think this trend of authenticity and rawness and realness is going to continue, and it's just going to cause brands to be accountable. I think that's a great thing.
There's definitely been a shift in attitude, and I think that's led by those really influential voices in those spaces.
We have an advantage having worked through GDPR, and now this is becoming a global trend. We've almost had a crystal ball, so we know how things are going to go. The legislation that's coming out in the US over the next few years, both state and federal, we know about that, and so we know what's coming and we can help prepare brands.